Hello, folks. Welcome to this week's The Heart of CX podcast. I'm Max Ball, joined as always, and thank God, with Joanna Palmer. Joanna, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, Max Ball. It feels a little like fall here. The air is crisp. It was a nice 55 degrees this morning. But yet
Mm.
I can still hear a lawnmower in the background. So I don't know if fall is here. Actually, I don't think it's here to stay from a weather perspective. It's supposed to get hot again this weekend. How about you, Max?
I'm doing very well. We have summery weather at the moment, so it doesn't quite feel like fall yet, but it's getting there. If I look out my window, I see some red in the tree leaves already, so it's creeping up. It's
Yeah,
coming.
yes, it is.
And if you were willing, I'm I wanted to bear a scar that I have, and maybe we could talk about that on the podcast today, if that was okay.
Yes, you've got me very intrigued now, Max Ball.
So, I, in my past, have worked on IVR systems and for a long time. And that experience has really colored how I approach the contact center in general. So I thought maybe do a little bit of a rewind, talk about the history and what IVR and contact centers looked like in the 90s. Those of
Yes.
you who remember the 90s. And we can, from there, just kind of talk a little bit about, because knockwood, I think attitudes have changed, but I have some reasons to think that change could be temporary. So
I,
what do you think?
yes, I would love to talk about this. And I think that there needs to be like a support group for those that designed IVRs or
Yes.
programmed IVRs in the 90s, just to
Yes.
know that those sins, you are not alone, I'm sure.
Right. I'm Max Ball. I'm an IVR guy. Um, yeah. So I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast or not, but I'll do it again just because I like this story. It's about my haircut. I went to one of those, kind of like custom cuts or whatever, where it's kind of a factory, and you go in there and you just get whoever's next in the queue. And so I'm sitting in the chair and they're cutting my hair, and just kind of, and she's got her rap, and what's your name, where are you from, how about the weather today, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, oh, I work on IVR systems. She's like, oh, what's that? When you call a company and you press the control, she's like, I hate those things. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna get a mohawk. And I actually went back to the same place and got her again. And it was the literal exact same experience. She asked me the exact same questions, the exact same order. And I stupidly enough answered that I did the same thing again. And I almost got a mohawk again. So that is the kind of the scar that to me, that's the best way to talk about it. And, from a functional standpoint, I'll actually talk a little bit about what I'm really meaning here. I worked designing the systems, building the IVR product.
Mhm.
And I also worked quite a bit on deployments and setting up the menus and figuring out, how do you on a telephone make sense of an alphanumeric account number that there's no way to get the record without. And, some of it was pretty hard. And so I've lived and built things that were truly IVR hell. And, the reality is IVR, it's like a gun. A gun is a completely neutral thing. Well, I don't know about that, but, a gun can be used to hunt food or whatever. And, but it can also be used for some really horrible things. And IVRs have been used for some really horrible things. So there's my scar. I'll put that out, and obviously we can kind of talk about where it goes and what it does, but I'll just let you kind of react to the scar a little bit, and we'll run the conversation from there.
Yeah, definitely. If this is definitely that scab that continues to be, picked or never
I
healed.
like how you've reduced it from a scar to a scab already. We're moving in the right direction quite a bit here.
Right? Well, it's going to turn into a scar if you continue to pick the scab, Max.
Okay.
But it's funny because I think that visceral reaction is one that's very common across everybody, right? We've all been in IVR hell. And for those that have designed systems, we've probably all, whether purposefully or inadvertently, designed systems that were IVR hell. So interesting way that I started my telecom career. I started as a system design engineer. So sitting there learning telecom, so that I can design these systems. I didn't even realize all the wiring that went into a phone and all the programming that happened in the back end. I was just like, oh, you mean you just don't plug that into the wall and it just magically works?
Yeah,
There's all
you just hit the
in
buttons
the
and it goes.
right. There's all of this in the background, and then you learn. I learned about IVRs and how to program that, but I didn't learn about how to create the great experience behind them.
Right.
So, oh, you don't want as many callers calling in? I can tell you what we can do. We won't put a zero out option, and we'll keep them in there and keep repeating and repeating the menu until they pick one of the options you have listed, or force them down the self-service hole. And again, these are. I'm sure everybody that has been an IVR programmer or designer has kind of matured as they've gone along, both from a technology perspective as well as just understanding what great customer experience is and how to blend technology and design.
One of the things that strikes me with what you're talking about is a point that we hit over and over and over, which is you get what you measure. And if you look at historically IVRs, so much is containment rates.
Yeah.
And, I'm 87% of the calls never left the IVR, never got to an agent. Well, yeah, because it's impossible to figure out how to do it. But people would claim success with stuff like that. And, there's so much of a better experience that can be had where, yes, containment is good. You don't need an agent to tell somebody where the nearest branch is. You don't need an agent to give somebody their account balance. But there are things that are really hard, and you need a person for. Don't get in the way of that. That's just the surest way to lose a customer. And it's you can also measure in the IVR. I got the account information and I found out the purpose of the call. So it went to the agent. They got a screen pop with the right information. How much shorter did that call become because of that? And build a business case that's not just containment, but what's I was about to say something, and I'm curious to get your thought. I was about to say people have moved away from just measuring containment over the years, and there's a lot less of that. But is there? I mean, what do you think? Do you think people get that and do that better?
I think some do for sure. I think we, as just an overall industry of customer experience and contact center, and the two really merging, I think as a whole and as a practice, the industry understands that containment's just one area to focus on, just like average handle time and average talk time is just one area. And so if you are laser focused on that one metric and that's what you're measuring, you can make the technology do that one metric and show a great story. But that great story does not equate to great customer experience
Right,
or great
right.
customer.
And something that struck me the other day in thinking around this is the example I just gave, where now I'm doing a screen pop, the agent's more efficient. How do you measure that? Average handle time. So, it's average handle time is so core to everything. It's never going to go away as a metric. But I think the point you were making is it's part of a spectrum of things that you look at. It's not a
It,
standalone thing.
it is, and there are so many levers that can be pulled that change average handle time. So if you're looking at your call history and average handle time over time, there are so many variations there. Just if based on the variety of questions that you're receiving and all of the various different things that are happening outside of the contact center. So, supply chain issues that are outside of your control could
Right,
drive up
right.
average handle time. So if that happened right after you put in your screen pop, you could say, oh, this technology transformation was not effective.
Right.
This
Let's pull
process
the
was
screen
not
pop out. This has clearly made things worse. And just
exactly. Exactly. When that's not it at all. It's understanding the context of those conversations and what's driving and what's reducing various different areas of handle time.
a really good point. It's a really good point. I'm gonna ask about a totally different use of context.
Mhm.
Um, I have a theory that focus on containment, focus on contact center as a cost center in general. I did the kind of the bigger picture even to that, not just IVR. That the cost center focus is inversely related to the state of the economy. So when things are bad, contact centers become cost centers. When things are good, people start caring about customer sat and all that kind of stuff. What's your, you talk to a lot of, you talk to a lot of contact centers and customers. What do you sense? Do you share that feeling, or do you think people are above that a little bit?
I, I think that there is some truth in that. And if, just thinking about just your personal habits during great economies and poor economies, it's there's less risk of not focusing on talk time when economies are good, right? Versus
Right.
when
Right.
economies are bad,
Well
at
said.
least
Well said.
logic.
Yeah.
Um, that said, are you penny wise but pound foolish there in terms of are there opportunities to drive additional revenue to your bottom line if you weren't so focused on talk time? And I do have conversations with people even today that want those hard and fast savings and taking a look at investment versus opportunity and benefit. It's still the investment they look at completely separate sometimes than the
Yeah.
benefit. So it's I'm spending how much on this? How can I justify this? I'm like, you've got it right on this other side of here's the benefits. Look at your labor. You've got to reframe how you're looking at this in terms of how much are you spending on labor today and how can we make this more effective and efficient while still improving the customer experience? And thinking about talk time is just one metric, one area that you can improve efficiency. But better areas to focus on are why are people calling you to begin with? Where is the friction? Where can we make it easier and eliminate that friction for these customers upstream? And so changing that conversation from is it cost center or profit center to contact center and strategic partnering for that enables you to identify friction within your processes. And it
I,
should be part of the process optimization piece.
I love talking about friction because, as we've gone on the record a million times, customer effort and all that, we're both big fans. So
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay. I have one last uh, tributary to take this conversation down.
Okay.
Is are we going to have good experiences, or are we going to have bot hell?
You know, optimistic Joanna wants to believe that there will be good experiences, great experiences. I think that there's a learning curve with anything. I think about the first speech enabled IVR that I rolled out, and it was speech enabled hell. Just a horrible customer experience. Nothing that I'm proud of, but I admit to it being a huge learning experience. And so, with that, I think that there's going to be a learning curve with bots as well. And so, there's going to be pain before we really figure out that what's ideal look like. What are your thoughts there, Max?
So I have a recent experience, and it was so scarring that I actually printed the interaction, and I'll read you. This is a chat experience that I had Monday. I can't log into the website. For an update on your order status, please log into your account. There you can see information such as delivery details, order summary, and any event updates that would be relevant to your order. That was the response to I can't log in.
Oh, wow.
So
wow.
This was a concert ticket ordering system. And I mean, I do the other CX therapy webinar with Julian, and this is a trip to the couch for me. This was so painful, but it just was staggering that it was that bad. I got to two different, and it didn't say this was a bot. It said live chat.
Oh no.
Two different places it said that. Finally, I found a form to fill. There was no phone number. Actually, there was a phone number, and it said the phone number was available from 8 a.m. to midnight Central Time. And when I called at 2 p.m, it said we're closed. So then I found a form to fill out. So I filled out the form and sent that in. And then after I did that, I looked up and I noticed there was a third live chat button somewhere else on this. And I hit that one, and that turned out to be a real chat. I was 85th in line, but that was fine. I had no issue with that. They did get through to me. And literally in one sentence, and I said my problem, and in one sentence, the person said, if you're on a PC, you probably have a VPN and it's blocking. And that was it.
Oh my gosh.
And I never in a million years would I have thought of that. So it just is like, and I get it. Concert ticket companies are lucky to be alive right now. How much can they really put in a customer sat? But oh man, and how much competition do they have? But oh man, it was
right. But that, thinking about that initial bot experience, it's like I can't log in, and how easy the answer appeared to be once you got to a live agent. It's
right. Yeah, exactly. And even if it was, I don't know. It's so dysfunctional. I don't think we could ever fix it. But I now have solid proof that some people are going to produce chatbot hell. And, there's no AI here or anything. This is just the dumbest IVR menu imaginable. Both of you and I, 20 years ago, created things much more elegant. Yeah. So it's out there, but I do actually share your optimism. That has been the exception in my experience. And, I personally don't mind if the bot experience isn't great. Same thing I feel about an IVR, as long as I can pretty easily get to a person when it's clear that's the only answer.
I completely agree. And one last question to wrap up, Max. Were you able to get those concert tickets?
I did. Okay. And it's
Good.
still a lousy customer experience because I got a QR code on my phone and nothing that says this is for tickets other than an email that I'm not going to have when I go to the gate. So I'm just scared to death. I bought these for friends, and I'm just scared to death we're going to go out there and say, oh yeah, one of you goes in. And given the experience, I have no reason to trust these guys at all, but hopefully it'll work out.
fingers crossed everybody will get to enjoy the concert,
I'm
and you'll
pretty
have a
sure
much
they
better
will.
in-person experience than you had purchasing the tickets. Well, I think that this is a good spot to end on today. Thank you so much, Max, for coming and sharing your scar with us. And that was a great conversation just overall on self-service.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I feel better. I will. Who knows? Maybe I'll get some lunch now.
All right, sounds good. Enjoy your lunch.
All
And thanks
righty.
everybody for joining us today. Until next week.
Thanks a lot.